about that. Yeah, so in receptive mindfulness practice, we don't take a strongly directed, active approach to recognizing that sense of me when it appears, when it arises. And there's no need to search for it or narrow down and sort of direct the mind to try and find it. But when you notice something that feels like, oh, me, or that sense of who I am, then it's really helpful to notice that. But we can include it as just another arising, if you like. So amongst the body sensations, the breath, the sights, the sounds, that thinking is happening. So it's just another one of those manifestations, an object arising in experience, that sense of self. So what U Tejaniya says, he says, you've already noticed it at that point. You've noticed that it's come up, and that's all that you need to do. And that every time you notice it, you're growing awareness. And that's what we want to do. We want to strengthen awareness so that it can see what's happening with ourself out of the way, if you like. I think as well, we're also strengthening a right view every time we recognize that sense of self as an object in this more impersonal way. Then we're strengthening that Dharma perspective in the back of the mind quite naturally, just through our observations. And when we recognize something as an object, then we're not completely caught or identified in it. So there's that sense of, more objectivity around what's arising, which is very helpful. So sometimes that sense of me, is very strong. Sometimes it often arises actually with strong emotion. And ironically, it can be hard to see then because we're so focused on the emotion. We're so focused on the content, but I'm so angry. I'm really upset about that. There's a strong sense of me sort of invested in that emotion. So as well as the emotion, if you can identify that sense of selfing of me and what that's like, that's great. And then when the mind is quieter, you might see again that sense of I pop up. Can be quite subtle, but because the mind is quieter, it can be easier to see. Maybe it's popping up to just sort of quietly congratulate ourselves about something that's happened in practice. We're just quietly appropriating something as belonging to me. Didn't I do well? As the old TV commentator would say, I forget his name. So whichever it is, it's good to be able to just recognize, clearly know a variety of ways in which that sense of self pops up and what it feels like in experience. That's the main thing. You may not have sort of words or sort of, you may not want to use a label, but you can get a sense or feeling of how it feels and get familiar with that. And that familiarity works well in with awareness. It helps slow things down so that they become more obvious and more clear. And you see a bit more about what that whole dynamic of selfing. You see what's happening a bit more. And that's all the investigating you need to do. In this particular approach, you don't need to do anything more active than that. it's helpful to recognize that it's not a problem. We can say, "Oh God, I'm such a selfing person," that sense of self is so strong, or yeah, that all about me feeling. But actually, it's a good thing to see it. It means that awareness is able to recognize something that usually we're completely identified with. So notice if the mind thinks it's a problem, and recognize that that's actually not true. That's just a thought in the mind, in the moment. And recognize how that sense of self is not there all the time. If you can recognize it sometimes, not notice it as an experience at other times, can give you a sense that it's coming and going. So also in daily life, I've been talking about during sitting practice mainly, but in daily life, yeah, notice when that sense of self asserts itself. Yeah, when it's triggered, or yeah, it might be when we're praised or blamed for something. What I find one for me is if I feel forgotten about, or if I feel ignored. That's something that is likely to sort of have it pop up, and I can feel something sort of coalesce. And it can be like a feeling in the body, but it also has this sort of mental, strongly mental component. Something being a bit squeezed. But what's it like for you? When we disagree with someone, when we feel that we're right about something, but also I think when we feel that we're wrong, yeah, then it can pop up quite strongly. Oh, I didn't get that right. What's wrong with me? And play a game with it. It can be something that it's easy to start giving ourselves a bit of a hard time about. But how many times can you notice that sense of self in a day or in an hour, and have a little play with it? Yeah, we don't want to take it seriously or too seriously. Notice the times when it's weaker, when perhaps there's gone into an abeyance. Perhaps you don't. The times when you think, oh, really don't notice much selfing going on here. And what are those times? What are you doing? Are you in communication with a good friend, in nature and beauty, connected with the arts? I was thinking one place for me is when I go to Sangha night at the centre. Actually, there's just a sense of just being there together with lots of people I know to some degree, sharing an evening about the Dharma. So something about common shared values, or a shared project, I think can loosen or dial down that sense of self. So as I said, it's just good to notice, and when we start noticing more regularly, then we can get that sense of how this is really not here all the time. And it starts to undermine, without us having to do anything, it starts to undermine that sense of something that's fixed, that's always there. Because we can notice times when perhaps it's not there, or it's different, it's weaker, it's looser, it's more other regarding. Yeah, okay, so play around with that perhaps. Let's pause.